Hello everyone, this is Fi. We're checking out the Dungeon Runners. This is a game I've not played before. We're going to give it a playtest and see if we can give some useful feedback. I've got the game page open here. It's not much here, but it says first prototype build made for demo day. Most of this game was made in the last 3 days. Has no polish, no sounds, no juice, no content. Does have bugs. So that's about it. So apparently this is 3 days worth of work. That'll be interesting to see, but let's go ahead and try this out. I've not seen anything past the screen here. You might hear a little bit more noise in the background as I'm speaking than usual. We've got a lot of rain going on here, so that's all that is, but let's go ahead and try this out. So, looks like WASD to move and start. I guess we just click on this or something. Alright, we click on that, we got a little character. Alright. So yeah, 3 days worth of work. There's something up here. Does this say gameplay? I think it just says gameplay. Alright, so a few things I'm noticing. Boy, the controls feel bonkers. Okay. So there's only cardinal direction movement, which is not necessarily bad. I mean, make a game around that. That's interesting. But one of the first things that stands out to me um, in terms of the movement is it doesn't respond to the last direction you pressed. So for instance, if I'm going up and then I want to go right, if I am still holding the up key for a moment, when I press the right key, it doesn't like respond to that. It keeps going upwards. And it depends on which buttons you press, so this happens sometimes. If you don't account for this, it can make it feel like the movement is quite unresponsive because there's these little delays where you didn't quite let go of the last key before you press the next one, and it's like it just makes it feel actually awful in my opinion. So when you have like for instance 8 direction movement, or just like a thumbstick or whatever, when you have, let's say, 8 direction movement, when you press the next key, if I press up and then I press right, even if I didn't let go of the last one, it still kind of starts moving to the right because it starts moving like diagonally or whatever. So you don't get the same effect that I'm getting right here, where it just kind of feels awful, even though you didn't necessarily account for this. But in my opinion, it's always ideal, I think, if you have like WASD movement to kind of track the last keys pressed and go in that direction. So for instance, if I hold left and then I press right, I start running right. But if I hold right and then press left, it doesn't do anything. So again, the game is just not accounting for that fact. So in any case, yeah, that was a lot of time spent on a tiny detail, but it really affects the way this feels, like a tremendous amount. This is a little bit of inertia, I think. There's a little bit of acceleration before you get up to your full speed here, I guess. Yeah, that feels weird. I guess I just have to kind of try and keep that in mind and like try to let off the keys really fast so I can quickly move in the directions I need to here. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is the camera's a little weird because, as you can see, like if I just go left and right, the camera's kind of bouncing around because the way my character is rotating, it's like tied to some part of my character that's kind of spinning around like this. It's kind of obvious, but just mentioning what occurs to me. I don't know, maybe I can fall off here. I don't know if I should try. We've got spike things. Is there like other buttons? I think we just WSD. So I'm getting stuck in a run animation. It looks like I guess just for if I just tap the other direction, it's something to do with the way the animations work. It just keeps going for a bit there. So I've got some different kinds of traps here. This is pretty standard fare, I suppose, for this kind of thing. I don't remember the last time I played a game like this, but it certainly has a familiar sort of sense about it. I do remember back in the day they had like the old StarCraft maps that were sort of like this, which was, of course, I had the RTS controls, so it's like really indirect movement, and it was kind of your character was kind of sluggish to respond to your clicks and stuff, so it was definitely a little bit of a different experience. But yeah, I think there was that game that was kind of Reddit famous that was sort of the same thing, and it had the, what was it, like Fairly Odd Parents style graphics, and then it didn't sell for some reason. But that was a similar kind of game, I guess, in the same genre or whatever. All right, looks like I didn't quite line up that. Oh, it looks like I can kind of see off into the distance here now. That's interesting. So it kind of fell out. Oh, okay, it kind of fell off the edge there a little bit. Didn't quite line myself up fully with the little platform there. All right, interesting. We see a little path. I guess that's it then. We just have to stop on one of these safer parts. Got more spinny doodads. Again with some safe parts here. How does this work? We go like this. Is this different? This looks kind of identical, I think, to the last thing, more or less. And is that it? There's the finish. All right, so yeah, oh, we can kind of venture. Oh, I walked off and died. Respawn, restart, quit. All right, let's click on restart. All right, so yeah, I guess this is click to begin. Yeah, so obviously 3 days worth of work. Oh, I can fall off there too. 3 days worth of work. This actually, I mean, I might even call it impressive. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, these are probably pre-made assets and stuff that were, I mean, this isn't, it's not realistic to create all of these visual assets within the 3 days mentioned, I'm sure. But even so, functional game, not even devoid of fun, to be honest. I mean, some of these, I kind of like this kind of thing. Might be nice if the camera kind of. All right, so there's a thing where, like, when you die in a game, you have to kind of be able to sort of watch yourself die and then have the camera kind of stay there for a minute, because you kind of want to just see what was around you and like the events that led up to your death, and your brain has to have a moment to kind of process that. Um, if the camera just like immediately goes somewhere else the moment you died, it feels really jarring. So that's kind of happening here a little bit. A little detail, but that would be a nice thing to consider. It makes a pretty big difference, actually, just how it feels when you die. But yeah, like this kind of thing, I kind of like the way that this kind of thing can go, where it's like what I did before, where you can kind of run back and forth a little bit to kind of juke the, I don't know if juke is the right word, but the little spinny bits and that kind of thing. It just sort of taps into some of these I don't know, gamer instinct type things. You just sort of figure this stuff out over, you know, playing a lot of games. Obviously, this part it's not really necessary. I guess it was probably in a later instance of that kind of puzzle where that kind of emerged. But yeah, stuff like that is cool if you can just kind of tap into this like gamer instinct kind of thing, and you can do some really simplistic gameplay that's still fun by doing things like that, I think. So interesting. I'm noticing the shadows have like a, they're not really solid. You can see like these little outlines around the, I guess there's some little gaps in the geometry here, and it's casting shadows like this. It's kind of weird. That's not feedback. I'm just, I don't know. I'm just pointing out what I'm noticing. But yeah, obviously it's easy at the moment. But yeah, I'd be interested to see like a game like this, but having a little bit more sort of complexity in play. It might be interesting to see. That's kind of weird to die like that, but might be interesting to see. It looks like we actually have continuum points and everything here. Might be interesting to see, or is this the beginning again? I don't even know. No, I don't think it is, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what else the developer might come up with for ideas to plug into this kind of game if they decide to keep expanding on it for more than 3 days, which would be great to see. I could think of all sorts of things, but I won't do that. Not right now. unless you want me to, you can always ask. But yeah, hopefully this was at least entertaining, if not useful. I mean, I don't really make these to be entertaining, to be honest. It's not probably not very entertaining if we're being honest with each other, but I'm just being impatient. Yeah, very interesting to see. So I just did a thing like this. Is there... starting to wonder if there's some kind of like random generation going on where maybe these sets of traps could be like chunks that are kind of put in a random order or something, and then there might be like repeating ones or something. Is that what's happening here? Interesting. I mean, that's... I guess that makes it even more impressive if that's the case. I'm not just imagining things, you know, to fit that in 3 days. But yeah, the only other thing I would say is just to be careful about the colliders. This kind of game is very much the kind of game, because it's like one hit death sort of situation, right? So you have to be very careful about collision, because if you ever end up in this situation where the player just dies and they thought they were safe and they swore that they were safe, it can get frustrating very easily. So I tend to advocate for this anyways, for at least, you know, for a lot of games, but particularly when you have like these sort of one hit death sort of things, I tend to advocate for like the player collision to be like smaller than the actual visual, not like the same size, but actually smaller, because it just makes things a little more forgiving, and it makes it so that like if you do get hit by something, there's no question that it was like definitely, you know, you definitely got stabbed by a spike or whatever it is, whenever it's going to be. Because when you get it, like if you start pushing things right to the edge, then you get into the area that it's like the player can kind of question, like, did I really get hit, or is the game screwing me over, that kind of thing. So hopefully that makes sense. But you know, same thing with the... oh, all right. Okay. Looks like if you get right on the edge, you can kind of start to... I assume I started to fall just a little bit, but was able to kind of run into the corner or something. I don't know. But what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, just the you know, obviously not just the collider on the player, but you have to consider the colliders on the traps themselves and all these things. But yeah, I think this is like somewhat randomized, the order of this. Run. Okay. Did I do this one before? I think I must have. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully this was useful for you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.